Welcome to McNair Media with Mrs. Montgomery. We are reading one of the 2023 to 2024 Black-Eyed Susan Picture Book nominees. Listen to the Language of the Trees. A story of how forests communicate underground. Words by Tera, Kelley. Pictures by Marie Hermansson. The forest was full of chattering. A jay shrieked at a sniffing coyote. A squirrel scolded them from a low branch. The trees rustled as if whispering to each other. No one noticed the tiny seedling pushing its way above the soil. Quietly, its needles stretched out in the cool darkness of the forest floor. It was a miracle it sprouted at all. As a seed, it had been tucked inside a seed cone, hanging high on the branch of a giant tree, till one day, chomp! The squirrel grabbed the cone and scampered down the tree. He buried it in a special spot for a winter snack. The seed rested underground for months. Luckily, the squirrel had a lot of special spots. He never came back. Nestled inside its cone, the seed waited. When it was ready, the seedling sprouted at the base of a giant tree. Centuries ago, this mighty tree was a tiny seedling too. Now it towered over all the other trees in the forest, strong and straight. It looked like it could survive anything. But no part of the forest is entirely free from danger. As small as it was, the seedling's roots reached underground and met the roots of other trees. Threaded between them was a silky net of fungi, a web that stretched from root to root and beyond. Through this web, the forest passed secrets. The trees talked to each other through their roots. They spoke of danger, of drought and pests. They spoke of what one tree needed and another had to give. The seedling began to listen. The giant tree, with its huge crown, gathered an abundance of sunlight. It soaked it up and turned it into food. It took care to send the little seedling enough to nourish it. How did it know the seedling was one of its own? It was a mystery buried under the soil where their root tips intertwined. It was not only the tiny seedling that depended on the giant tree, but the rest of the forest too. Larger than all the others, the giant tree sent nutrients through the underground web. It brought water up from deep in the earth. It housed the owl that nested in its upper limbs, and the coyote with its den at its foot. Day by day, the seedling inched taller. Then one night, everything changed. The sky came alive with lightning flashes. The forest swayed under the force of the winds, and thunder roared in the sky. Tucked safely down below, the seedling's needles barely rustled, until... Crack! A massive strike lit up the giant tree's crown. Thud! Down went an uppermost branch. The animals of the forest scattered. The jay shrieked. The squirrel ran. For a moment, the giant tree lit up with an orange glow, and then darkness. In the morning, it was quiet. The giant tree had been struck. It had burned briefly, but it still stood tall. Down on the forest floor, the seedling was missing one of its branches, snapped off when a limb had fallen from the giant tree. Otherwise, it had escaped harm. But something was different. A streak of golden light touched the seedling's needles. Instead of only drinking from its roots, it drank in the full light of the sun. For the first time, it made its own food. After the storm, the animals returned to the forest. The squirrel began its seed cone collection again. The owl took a long nap. The forest waited. The forest listened. That's when the first winged beetle landed. The beetle sent out an odor which said, "Attack!" Winging through the air, crawling over bark, beetles clustered on the giant tree and laid their eggs. The giant tree sent out an alarm. "Danger!" The warning pulsed through the forest, passing through tree roots carried by the web of fungi. Day after day, the beetles attacked, a small but persistent swarm. No more sugar flooded the underground web from the giant tree, just distress. Then something unexpected happened. Through the threads of fungi, from root tip to root tip, nutrients flooded, not out from the giant tree, but toward it. The forest gave what it had so the giant tree might live. And it did. Someday, with luck, the seedling would grow tall too. But for now, it drank deep through the web at its roots and waited and listened as the forest talked. The science in the story. A Douglas fir tree can live to be hundreds of years old and grow as tall as an apartment building. But when it first sprouts from a seed, it is smaller than the palm of your hand. Douglas fir trees make seeds that are hidden inside cones. These cones stay on the tree until they are ready to open. Then they release winged seeds, which are carried long distances on the wind. Squirrels sometimes eat seed cones or take them to bury and store for winter food. If the squirrel forgets to dig the cone up again, the seeds have the chance to sprout. Trees, like all plants, make their own food from sunlight, air, and water. This is called photosynthesis. Have you ever seen a mushroom growing on the forest floor? These mushrooms are the above-ground part of fungi. Some fungi spread through the soil under forests. Trees grow their roots through this web. Fungi can't make their own food like plants can. Some fungi partner with trees to get the food they need. Fungi receive the food that the trees have made with photosynthesis. In exchange, they deliver nutrients, water, and even messages between trees. Lightning is more likely to strike the tallest tree in a forest. Some trees catch on fire and burn up from the inside when struck by lightning. Large older trees often act as mother trees. They might not be related to all the trees in the forest, but they do take care of them. Seedlings especially need their help. The end. Check out this book from the library to learn more information about this topic.